Alright, you guys, today's video is going to be for my masculines, and we're going to be talking about kundalini energy, how to work with your kundalini energy, and how to raise your kundalini energy through your channel, through your chakra system. And I want to specifically focus on this topic in context of divine masculine on a divine love journey, on a twin flame journey, because we are in seasons of awakenings of the masculines. But season of awakenings of the masculines doesn't mean that only the masculines on the journey are awakening. This is a collective season of awakenings. I've been talking about this for a while now. So if you don't resonate specifically with that journey, but you are a masculine, identifying with a masculine energy, and you are on a journey of self-improvement, awakening, healing, however you want to call it, it's all same. It's just the journey of returning to self, returning to truth, awakening to the truth of life and the truth of meaning of life. Why we're here, where we come from, where we're going, that kind of things. You're welcome to stay as well, because although I will be speaking about this in context of a journey, you will be able to easily translate that onto any kind of a situation when we talk about masculine, kundalini, your inner force, your life force, and working with that energy to continue to expand your consciousness. So before we go to the part where I give you a little exercise, and I will speak to you actually how to work with that kundalini energy. I've actually done a video a while ago. I'll put it on the screen. All those videos that I will be referring to today are stored on YouTube in the Divine Masculine playlist, so you can go ahead and watch it if you're interested. But before I actually talk a little bit more about how to work with that energy and what's the benefit of that, I want to give you 3 important things, and I want to talk about 3 very important topics for you to understand better from a perspective of masculinity and the journey, what that life force energy is, what that kundalini energy is. So before that, even, there's one more thing that popped into my mind. Sorry, you know that I'm very sort of authentic and there's no plan here. I do want to mention where specifically this information will be important for you, what we're going to be talking about today, if you are identifying with a twin flame journey. So when the masculine on this journey, when the journey starts, we both get activated to the journey, right? But the feminine awakens immediately. Her kundalini awakens immediately. She starts to become conscious to this journey from the very beginning. Whereas the masculine, in comparison, you awaken, when we talk about that actual kundalini awakening, at the very end of this journey. So in the beginning, you walk beyond the veil, because part of your journey, and again I've explained this in my master class, it's to walk through karma, right? And it's to heal on the level of physical existence. So you have to be unaware of what's going on, but then you start to awaken on the level of a mind. You reach that point when you start to realize, okay, I'm on this journey, this woman is my divine counterpart, she's not going away. I haven't seen her in years, but I feel closer and closer and more pulled towards her. And you start awakening on a level of the mind. Your feminine inspires you to work for your shadows, work for your traumas, and so on and so forth. And when you are in that moment of time, when you've already awakened on a level of the mind, you're consciously on a journey, you know you're on a journey, you know that the end game of this journey is union with your feminine, whether you believe it fully at this point or not just there yet, but you already know you're on the journey. And however, your kundalini, your life force energy, I like to call it satori. You know, I call it satori because it's such a different energy, feminine and masculine, that it deserves a different name, but in the end it's just labels. But it hasn't awakened yet. This is that window of opportunity when you can work with that energy. And this is where all the knowledge that I want to share with you today will actually become useful. All right. So I want you to understand, like I said, 3 very important things about that life force energy. Number one is that your life force energy is expressed through sexuality, is felt through sexuality. And within that life force energy is where you find your power, your personal power, and through that personal power, you find freedom of your spirit. And through that, you actually connect to the divine. So our life force energy, yes, it comes from the divine, and we'll talk about this in a moment, directly from the divine, but our life force energy is what connects us to the spirit, to the divine, to God, to the universe, to higher realms, and it is expressed through and embodied through sexuality. It is very important to understand and acknowledge. And that's actually the reason, and this is where it's something that as masculine you need to understand, because you are those that will collapse the matrix, and you are those that need to understand the matrix because you operate on a level of physical plane as masculines, as architects and builders of our physical world. This is why the distorted patriarchal system that we live in, that literally is designed to benefit only few and harvest energy of all, this is why the system puts so much shame and shallowness on sexuality. It's going to be a little bit more shame when it comes to women and a little bit more shallowness when it comes to men. But because we've so mixed these days in this distortion that a lot of men are in their feminine energy, a lot of women are in their masculine energy, it's completely mixed and matched. But it's mainly shame for women, and it's mainly shallowness for men, and it's imposed by conditioning, by culture, by religions to disconnect us from our sexuality, which is again our life force energy, our personal power, and through that power we feel the element of God within, because through that power we connect to the truth of life and to the divine. This is why in many cultures, there is this shame put on women around their sexuality. If you're too sensual and too sexual, then you're a slut. If you're not a godly woman and you don't give your body only to a man that priest allowed you to, shame. If you use your sexuality for pleasure, shame. That's what religion tells us, right? That it's supposed to serve only if you want to have children with your man, right? So God forbid you feel pleasure. God forbid you feel empowered. There's so much shame around women who give it away to multiple men. Well, that's actually for a specific reason, but there's a difference between shame and understanding divine order, right? So there's shame and shame and shame put on women. Whereas when we talk about men, there's shallowness, right? So they try to disconnect you from that life force energy. And again, we will dive into that topic a little bit more today. But they try to disconnect you from that energy, so you don't understand that it is actually your life force energy that you can use to work with your kundalini to awaken, to expand your consciousness, and to remember the truth of life. So they put it on a very shallow level, right? So as a man, you're going to hear that body counts matter, that how many women you had, it matters, that you should give away that energy because it is your energy. So you should give away freely. Whereas an intention is a very powerful thing, right? So remember, the intention you give something away matters. So the shallow system convinces you that it's okay to give it away to pornography. It's okay to give it away to random women. And in reality, as per divine law, your life force energy belongs to you or your divine feminine, because only you and your true divine feminine will have the knowledge and capacity to transmute it for a greater good. And again, we'll talk about this in a moment, but in this first point that I want you to understand is your life force energy expressed through your sexuality is something that is your personal power. It's something that is your life force kundalini satori energy that connects you to the divine, connects you to God, connects you to higher realms. And why, in case you don't know yet, why the system wants to keep it dormant within us through shame and through shallowness, is because if all people knew this, if all people remember this right now, if the kundalini energy of all people were with it, would be madness, because it's a process before you actually learn to work with it. But if all people remember, the system collapses. The system collapses. The system is built on our obedience and on our dormancy. The moment all people awaken, we stop participating in this madness. We stop allowing the elites to benefit from our energy, and we claim back our power, right? So this is why it's so important for you to understand. Second thing that I want you to understand, and I want you to really work through, specifically in the context of this journey, is to release that past shame. So what I mean by that, the masculine on this journey, as I mentioned, and again, I don't want to go into details because this video will be extremely long. It probably will be long either way. 8:08 on the timer, on the clock, sorry. I've explained this in my masterclass, so you can watch my masterclass for Divine Masculine, and there's a separate for Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine. But the masculine, you walk through this journey in the beginning under, you would know this at this point, under a veil of avoidance, right? Under a veil of denial. You're unaware what's going on. You feel something, obviously, for your feminine. You feel that this is special, but you don't think about this in the context of destiny, journey, spirituality, divine counterpart. There's an objective to this journey. The end game is to awaken, is to remember, is to find your way back to self, and then ultimately to your feminine. So you try to escape it. You try to avoid it. And we'll talk about why exactly that happens in a moment as well. But it's meant to be, because you cannot awaken. As a masculine element of this journey, you have to stay dormant, so you're able to walk through karma, to walk through the matrix, to the shallowness of the matrix, to really get acquainted with the darkness of the matrix, because again, it's your role and it's your job to remember and restore how the matrix is supposed to look like ultimately as masculines, as the architects of this physical world. So as you are dormant and as you are in the matrix, that, going back to my point number one, keeps men on a very shallow level, because the patriarchal system doesn't benefit anyone, men whatsoever, only few at the top, like I said. So it keeps you dormant and it keeps you shallow. And in that process, it's normal and natural for all masculines. You connect to other women because you want to forget about your feminine, because subconsciously you don't feel worthy of this love. So you connect to other women. And as you connect to other women, there's a moment in life that subconsciously you do progress on this journey, as long as your feminine walks the path, and most feminine would walk the path in the beginning. You're going to reach a point on this journey that you will just start to understand that something is off, that you're not forgetting about this woman, right? You start to slowly go through that awakening of the mind that I've mentioned. And as you go through that awakening of the mind, you start to have this inner need to work through your shadows, to become a better man, and you start to less and less run away towards those distractions, right? And this is where you're going to start looking back at your past, at your relationships, and you're going to start to understand why you did certain things. That no, this is not just what men are supposed to do. No, this is not just who you were. You were bound by your shadows. You were bound by conditioning, and you start to release that, and you start to understand that it's not something that men are supposed to do. And with that, you go through that self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is a very extremely important element of the journey, and I have a whole episode in my masterclass dedicated to that. So you start to forgive yourself. And as you walk through that self-forgiveness, you reach a moment when you already know, this is my feminine. I start to believe that one day we will be returned to each other. I want to walk this path. I want to become a better man. And you start to run away towards distractions, and other women included, less and less and less. But in that period of time, so this is the first stage of that self-forgiveness. But in that period of time, as you approach closer, breaking no contact and walking towards your feminine and union, you may still have moments of weakness. And it's important here not to look at those things as mistakes and shame yourself, but just to understand that everything happens for a reason. And similarly, it happens for a feminine, but on a different level. And I spoke about this. I've done a video a few days ago about why there's a third party and why masculines continue to connect to other women. I've done it for my feminines, but you can watch that as well to understand better the mechanisms, right? And I've mentioned in this video that what feminists usually shame masculines for, so for connecting to other women whilst we're in separation, it's actually something that we still do as well, but it's embodied in a sort of a different thing. So what happens here is that we both need to train and master understanding and self-control over our greatest giving center. The giving center for the feminine is the heart. So we have to connect to the heart, to the intuition, to the inner knowing, to the oracle within. And we have to work on trust. And trust for us, similarly like for you, your giving center is your sacral. This is why we're going to be talking about the kundalini today, is your sacral. And you have to connect to it and understand it on a level deep enough not to lose self-control over it and give it away to random people. So just like you do it in the beginning, right? You give it away and then you start to understand it's not okay. You start to do it less and less and less and less. And ultimately you're in a place where maybe you fall into temptation once every half a year. And you have to understand that it's okay. It must be a lesson in it. And ultimately you will reach point when even when you're not yet with your feminine, there's no force in this planet that would push you to be with another woman. You enter the path. It may be a very short period of time because usually from there's the awakening, everything happens fast and you return to your feminine. But you do enter a moment when you realize it's either her or it's no one. It's going to be celibacy or it's going to be her. I wouldn't connect to any other woman ever. I don't want that. You almost feel this. It's something that we feel from the beginning, this inexplicable loyalty. But the reason it happens is because your feminine is actually the embodiment of your inner feminine. So the moment you start to be loyal towards yourself, you start to build strong integrity, you start to trust yourself, you no longer want to break that loyalty towards yourself. And once you don't want to break it towards yourself, you would never break it towards your feminine, even when you're not together. So the same feeling is embodied within the feminine through self-trust towards the heart. So in the beginning, we don't trust our feeling towards you. We think we're delulu. We think it's crazy. We think it's impossible. And as we grow, we tap more into our heart. Our heart becomes our center of knowledge. We no longer need external information and knowledge. We reach in towards our heart. And at the end of the road, again, every 6 months, we may still fall into that moment of, is he really returning? Is he really ever going to be with me? Until we reach that point that we have blind faith towards our path, towards God, towards the divine. So that's how it happens for the feminine and for the masculine. So you need to remember that, and you need to just understand that if you fell into that temptation, it's okay, because it all serves a purpose. It's not mistake, it's a lesson. And in every lesson, there's a learning. So learn it. Think about the why. And I promise you that you will reach a point that you will understand. It's almost going to happen of a level of a body. It's going to be this feeling that you're not even able to fantasize about any other woman, to think about any other woman, that all women starts to disappear. And it's like you clearly see your feminine in front of you, and that's that moment when you're going to be able to start to walk towards her closer and closer. So that's the second thing that I want to mention. And the third important thing that I want you to understand about Kundalini energy and sexual energy, life force energy, is that how it actually operates, where it is created, and how it actually operates and flows between the feminine and masculine, because this is also very important to understand. So when we talk about that Kundalini energy, Kundalini Satori, which is your life force energy, it's created in our sacral space. right? So for women, it's our womb space. For men, it's your hara space. It's placed in between your hips. It's your sacral chakra, right? That orange energy point within your body, your sacral chakra, the center of creation. There's a reason it's called center of creation, because it creates that kundalini energy, that life force energy. How it happens for women, then this is why I always say that it deserves a different name, and it's something that I've explained in that celibacy video as well. We have the womb. Even if you're a woman and you no longer have a womb, it's forever energetic womb, right? It's our center of creation, is the portal to the divine, is the only place through which something from other realms can penetrate this physical plane, can come to live in this physical plane. And I'm not only talking about giving birth to children, but about the power of the creatrix that I always explain to you guys. If a feminine energy, whether that's divine feminine or feminine within you, doesn't create something on an energetic realm through belief that it exists, through embodying that it exists, and that's this trust that we talked about for the feminine, it's impossible to be grounded and to ever exist in the physical plane. This is why we are the creatrix. The feminine is, and we do that through the power of our womb. Womb doesn't just birth children, it births everything that exists in this world. So through that womb, through that portal, we draw that kundalini that exists there within us. We all have it since the day we're born, but it's dormant. But we draw energy towards it through that portal directly from the divine, because the feminine is a portal to the divine. We are a direct link to the divine, to higher realms. That's why we say that the feminine is the closest thing to God on this earth. And as that energy awakens and it starts to move through us, when we do that, we awaken our femininity, we awaken our power, we awaken our freedom. And through that is actually what awakens the life force energy of the masculine. Because remember, again, the masculine doesn't have direct link to the divine through the portal of our womb. We are the link to the divine for our masculines. So our sexuality, our empowerment, our femininity, it's what actually awakens and pressurizes the life force energy within a man to then for him to do something about it and to use it.